Public forum's purpose is to allow members of the public to express their views on particular items on tomorrow's council meeting agenda. My fellow councillors and I welcome and thank today's presenters for taking the time and effort to be here. I remind all people attending this meeting that it is being webcast on YouTube with audio and vision. A recording of the meeting is available on the internet and is required to be available for 12 months. Private recordings, including taking photographs by members of the public gallery, are not allowed. This ruling is to maintain the integrity of the meeting proceedings. Please ensure all devices, like mobile phones, are on silent mode, please. On behalf of Council, I welcome all people to the public gallery and observing live on the internet to this public forum. I acknowledge that this meeting is on Dunghutti land and we pay respects to elders past and present. We also welcome any other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people with us. I now call for any conflict of interest declarations from councillors or staff. Councillor Saul.
Mr Mayor, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I wish to state a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in 10.13, the outdoor dining fees and charges.
And you're?
The reason being, I have a business in the CDB of Kempsey.
And are you managing it by how? Staying in the meeting or going out?
It's non-significant, non-pecuniary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any other conflicts? Councillor Patterson, please.
Thank you. I'm just writing down the numbers. Yeah, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest for item number 10.6, 10.7, 10.8, 10.9, 10.10, 10.11, as I know the people that live in that area of South West Rocks, and I need to declare that interest.
So it's
I'm going to do that too.
Not significant. Okay, thank you. Councillor Riddington.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I will declare the same as Councillor Patterson. I know the people who live in that area.
Thank you. Councillor Wyatt.
Do we need to declare a conflict of interest for 10.14, Mayor and Councillor fees?
I was about to ask the General Manager that to get advice. You don't need to, Councillor Wyatt. Thank you. Anyone else? No? Thank you very much. Attending the public forum are Councillors Alexandra Wyatt, Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Simon Ferguson, Councillor Scott Butterfield, Councillor Anthony Patterson, Councillor Kerry Riddington and Deputy Mayor, Councillor Kenny Ring, and online we've got Councillor Arthur Bain. Council staff in attendance are Mr Craig Milburn, General Manager, Mr Michael Jackson, Director of Operations and Planning, Mr Wes Trotter, Director of Utilities, Ms Lisa Davies, Acting Director Corporate and Commercial, Mr Daniel Thorogood, Group Manager Government and Information Services, and Mr Peter Allen, and your title, Manager of Corporate Business. Thank you. Welcome. I now ask the General Manager, Mr Craig Milburn, to outline the guidelines of this public forum, please.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, and actually something that I should have actually asked you about before, whether you just want to give a brief update on Steve or I know members of the public.
Yes.
Yeah. As many of you know, Steve Mitchell, our Director of Corporate Business, Thursday a week ago went in to have a stent put in to one of his arteries. They said he had a 99% blockage in that artery and he was to go straight to Sydney. He was sent to Sydney on the Saturday. Last Wednesday, he went through major open heart surgery, at which time they actually put 3 stents in and did 5 bypasses in the operation. So very, very significant for Steve. He's been in ICU up until yesterday. He's now out of ICU, hoping to be home on Thursday. Certainly felt very knocked around those first few days after coming out of surgery. Steve will be away at least until early September, and we're going to make sure he stays away at least until early September so he does recover properly. We are passing on all your wishes. We know we've actually received a lot of best wishes and thoughts from the community for Steve. Yeah, we are passing those on, but he's left a big hole here in the organisation that we're attempting to fill by various means. But he's missed by all of us, and all of our wishes go out to Steve. Yeah, and his family, absolutely. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll now outline the code of meeting practice in terms of the speakers. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to address the council. This time is strictly enforced by the chairperson. Speakers at the public forum must not digress from the items on the agenda of the council meeting that they have applied to address the council on. If a speaker digresses onto irrelevant matters, the chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If a speaker fails to observe a direction from the chairperson, the speaker will not be further heard. A councillor, including the chairperson, may, through the chairperson, ask questions of a speaker following the address at a public forum. Questions put to the speaker must be direct, succinct, and without argument. Speakers are under no obligation to answer the questions put to them by councillors, but answers from the speaker to each question are limited to 1 minute. Speakers at the public forum cannot ask questions of the council, councillors or council staff. When addressing council, the speakers at public forums must comply with this code and other relevant codes of council, and speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, public alleging breaches of the council's code of conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. If the chairperson considers that the speaker of the public forum has engaged in conduct of the type referred to above, the chairperson may request the person to refrain from the inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw and unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the speaker fails to comply with the chairperson's request, the chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. We have 4 speakers today. I remind all speakers that you may have some councillors wanting to ask some questions on your presentation. These questions must only be on your presentation. These questions will be respectful and on the information you have presented. I will rule out of order any other questions. Speakers do not have to answer any questions put to them. Councillors, I would respectfully remind you that any question you may wish to ask of a presenter should be direct, succinct, and without argument. To further explain what is expected, direct questions must be on a point or points the speaker has made. Succinct means short. Example, no more than 15 seconds. Without argument means you are not attempting to change the speaker's viewpoint or opinion on an issue. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, speakers. Our first speaker today is Mr. Kyle Arnott. He is speaking against agenda item 10.1, Integrated Planning and Reporting 2024-2025. Thank you, Mr. Arnott.
All righty, let's see if I can get this thing to work. Lovely. All righty. Good evening, councillors and council staff. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of some of the community members, especially knowing there were others who applied to speak on this extremely important matter. I'm also aware that some in our community are reluctant to voice their concerns due to fear of reprisal or difficulty in expressing their views effectively. I'm deeply concerned about the council's proposal to implement the full 7.9% rate increase approved by IPART. This significant hike will affect all residents in our Shire without presenting any alternative options for a lower increase. While I understand the councils need to ensure financial sustainability, many residents, including those I represent, believe there are critical aspects of the current delivery plan and draft operational plan that require re-evaluation. The community simply will not be able to afford this rate increase, especially when we see ongoing expenditures on non-essential projects and substantial loans needing to be taken out. Firstly, let's address the financial burden using the full 7.9% increase would place on our community. Many families are already struggling to make ends meet, especially in the current economic climate. Increasing rates by the full amount approved by IPART, even if it amounts to $2 a week extra, will exacerbate these financial pressures, making it harder for residents to cover basic living expenses. It's crucial to consider the real-world impact on our community's daily lives. Furthermore, while the council claims to be finding ways to cut costs, we continue to see significant spending on projects that are not essential. For example, the ongoing investments in the Slim Dusty Centre, the upgrades to the Verge Eden Street sporting fields, although these projects are both culturally and recreationally beneficial, they are not critical to the immediate needs of our community. The operational plan highlights that while the Slim Dusty Centre is important culturally, it represents a significant financial commitment that diverts funds from essential services. Additionally, upgrades to the sporting fields, though variable, add to the ongoing maintenance and depreciation expenses. Moreover, the council's approach of applying for substantial loans to fund various projects is concerning. The long-term financial plan highlights that the Consolidated Capital Works program totals $663 million over 10 years, requiring $261 million in new loans. That can be found on the long-term financial plan, page 9. This significant borrowing increases our financial liabilities and places future financial stability at risk. Managing and servicing this debt will strain the council's finances further, potentially leading to future rate hikes or cuts in essential services if revenue projections fall short. The reliance on loans to fund capital projects significantly increases council's financial liabilities. Next, despite council's efforts to improve operational efficiency, the identified savings measures appear insufficient to address the forecasted deficits effectively. The operational plan mentions that further reviews of service levels and asset maintenance are planned to ensure financial sustainability. However, the scope and potential savings from these measures are not detailed sufficiently to instill confidence that they will significantly impact the deficit. To avoid the forecasted deficits and reduce the need for a rate increase, the council must identify further savings and explore additional revenue streams. A comprehensive review of all services are needed to identify non-essential functions that can be scaled back or discontinued. Capital projects should be prioritised based on return on investment, deferring non-critical projects. After months of pushback from the community, where residents have clearly and strongly expressed their concerns repeatedly, which seems to have fallen on some deaf ears, you still don't seem to grasp the severity of the impacts even this initial smaller increase will have on the people you are representing. I would like to see all present for tomorrow's meeting justify using the entirety of the approved rate rise while so many in our Shire are already struggling. The council's documents highlight ongoing cost-saving measures, yet the continued expenditure on non-essential projects and large loans tells a different story. Are you truly prioritising the needs of our community and actively finding additional savings as promised in November last year? While I understand the progress takes time, no viable solutions have yet been presented by council, leading me to believe that perhaps any attempts to finding further savings may not be taken as seriously as they should be. To conclude, I urge the councillors to reconsider their positioning on the approved rate increase and instead focus on re-evaluating the council's spending priorities and identifying additional cost-saving measures. Our community cannot bear the financial burden of this rate rise, especially when there are clear opportunities to reduce unnecessary expenditures and improve financial management. Let's work together to ensure that we build a financially sustainable future for Kempsey Shire without placing undue strain on our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Arnett. That's your time. Thank you. Any councillors have a question, please, for Mr. Arnett? Councillor Riddington.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arnott. Appreciate your time and the effort that you and your group have put in over the last 15 months. My question is, I part with the ordinary rate peg, which is 4.7. Would, in your opinion, would that have an undue impost on the community?
I think any increase will have some degree of impact, but I figure that the lower the amount, possibly less strain on people around us.
So, Mr. Arnott, are you saying that you would prefer no rate increase at all?
I think that's what we were aiming for last year, but here we are.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor.
Councillor Patterson.
Just checking, Mr. Arnott, that you stated in your speech that I just want to ask if this is correct. That you said that the sporting fields, Eden Street, did you, about the cost of those, did you know that they grant funded, fully grant funded?
Yeah, I'm fully aware that those are grant funded and fully grant funded. And what concerns me is the ongoing maintenance costs of that and the depreciation.
Do you understand what grants are, Mr. Arnott?
I think
Are they from rates? Are they from rates?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to answer that. I'm aware of what grants are.
Thank you.
Another question, sir. Just understanding your complete understanding of the costs that council has. Do you understand, or do you think this is correct? That wages, plant, product purchase, energy, asset management, roads maintenance and buildings, do you think any of that can be affected by undue costs outside of council's control?
100%, just like any business.
So do you think council should cut costs or not do these projects at all?
I suppose that depends on what the council deems essential.
Wages, plant, product purchase, energy. Anyway,
thanks,
thank you, sir.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Any further questions? Councillor White, thank you.
Yes, please. I just wanted to go back to what Councillor Riddington said about the 7.9%. Is there, there's two components to that, the SRV and the rate peg. And do you think the community understand that there is a difference? So the IPART, IPART, which allows the rate peg, and the SRV, which is that 3.2%. Yeah.
I'll go ahead and say possibly. I think a lot of people are still confused on how the whole rate peg and the SRV work, but I think we're doing what we can to keep people informed and understand what that is.
Councillor White, thank you.
One more question.
Yeah, Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, just another question. You're starting talking, Mr. Arnott, talking about the rate increase. Do you know, or do you think the rate increase is on the whole of your rate notice, or just the water, the sewer?
I'm
or
fully
the
aware that it's only on the general fund, but I'm also aware that the other two areas of rates are possibly be going up by the consumer price index, which is currently sitting at 3.8%. So not only are we looking down the barrel of a 7.9, we're also looking at nearly 4% on the other rateable areas.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ring, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, Kyle. I guess my question is around, you've talked about things that are essential and not essential in terms of projects. And I guess my question to you is, if we don't have projects, if we don't have these grants investing into our local infrastructure, and that means essentially that we won't have it, what will that mean for our community?
So, as you said, the grants into our infrastructure are all well and good, and I can see the benefit of having these things put in place, particularly the sporting fields, the upgrades. As I mentioned before, what concerns me is the ongoing costs, is what we're trying to battle at the moment. Council said last year at the November meeting, we've already got a backlog. That's what this SRV is for. Are we really going to add more to that?
Thank you, Mr. Arnott. There are no further questions. And thank you for your presentation. Our next speaker is Mr. Fred Andrews, who's going to be speaking against 10.3 Crescent Head Holiday Park Revised Concept Plan. Welcome, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you. I'm here today on behalf of the Crescent Head Residents and Ratepayers Association, speaking about motion 10.3. I know I put against in my application to speak, but I'd like to clarify we're in favour of nearly all of the changes, and in fact think most aspects are a huge improvement. It is just the short time frame and a couple of minor adjustments, and we feel it could be improved even further. Firstly, CRARA would like to thank KSC staff, in particular Stephen Mitchell, Peter Allen and Kate Pembroke, for entering into extensive and we feel very successful consultations with us. With the initial closing deadline for submissions set at the 2nd of May, we also like to thank Mayor Horville for putting through his mayoral minute on our behalf and successfully extending the submission date to the end of May. This allowed for a much more comprehensive review to be undertaken and assisted in allowing so many people to make submissions. All of this has allowed the development by Council of what we feel is a vastly improved concept plan. Between Stephen Mitchell, Peter Allen, CRARA and community, 10 positive initiatives have been recommended by KSC staff. We commend Council on listening to the community and fully support these 10 recommendations. However, we request councillors to support 3 modifications. Firstly, many in the community have stated their concern of the path along Killick Creek being included in the holiday park area. We request that this area remain as it has historically been seen as a public easement. CRARA is aware of possible technical legal issues with this, and we do acknowledge Council's stated commitment to keeping the pathway open 24 hours a day for public use. Secondly, regarding the removal of the old amenities block and replacement with a cabin suitable for disability use in Area 5. CRARA requests that this cabin instead be included as one of the 8 cabins in Area 3 at the eastern end of Reserve Road. This would mean that the first part of Reserve Road would remain cabin free and therefore allow the remaining view of the creek and beach to be retained. Although there is a lot of feedback from the community about how unexpectedly large the new glamping tents are and that they already obstruct part of the view. Continuing to build a disability cabin in Area 5 will only create the same issues as the shed created, as it will certainly be much higher than the existing amenities block. Although this would be one less cabin, it means all cabins on Reserve Road would be kept together and views would be retained. Finally, the reserve area between Area 11 at the rear of the houses fronting Willow Street doesn't seem to have been defined or included in any plans. This area is outside the boundary of the holiday park, does not seem to be included in the scope of the Foreshore Advisory Group, nor was it included in the Crescent Head Public Domain Project 2020. We would like this to be included in the scope for the advisory group, as it could become an important pedestrian access way between Pacific Street and Willow Street Park. As previously stated, CRARA would like to state that they fully support the majority of the new plans. We also agree with Council that the holiday park concept plan does not include the removal of existing car spaces on the foreshore, nor will it impact the status of the surf reserve. Allowing these areas to be included in the Foreshore Advisory Group scope will allow that group the ability to form a much better plan for the area, and we thank Councillor White for supporting this initiative. Our request is simply to ask you to support the 3 items we have mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. Any councillors wishing to ask a question? Councillor White, please.
So I just want some clarification. I'm just trying to scroll through and find it in my notes as well. The Willow Street, including it into the terms of reference for the foreshore group. Maybe this is more a question for General Manager. It is included now, isn't it?
No, well, we're only asking questions to the Speaker at the moment, Councillor White.
Pretty sure
it was mentioned, but there was no scope brought into it. So what we're requesting is that actually does get brought into the advisory group.
Okay,
but it was mentioned in the submissions, and it was mentioned in the motion which Council has put there, but no conclusion as to where it goes.
Okay, so got that. So you're asking us to, for information and to include
the advisory group.
Yeah.
to be part of their conversation.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Riddington, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Andrews. Appreciate your talk. Just so I can be clear in my head, the three issues that you've raised, the path of Killick Creek and the amenity block and disabled cabin, plus Area 11, do you want all three of those included in the scope or just the one?
No, I think the Reserve Road Disability Cabin would be brought into the holiday park concept plan. I think that would be correct.
Right.
And the path. Now, the path is issues which obviously the council know more about than I do, but holistically it's been, or not holistically, but historically it's been an easement for public access use 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Right.
It is being discussed being brought into the holiday park footprint, and we disagree with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews, could you outline the lack of definition in Area 11? What relevance is that? Because I don't understand that.
Area 11 is where the houses are on Willow Street.
Yes.
On the holiday park side, there is a space there which is not designated as holiday park, and it comes from Civic Street down into the area which is currently the overflow holiday park area. So there's a fairly significant amount of land there, and the discussion is to put a footpath through there. As you walk down Willow Street, there's no path. You are on the middle of the road.
From Pacific Street, I'm sorry. Yes. From Pacific Street.
From Pacific Street down to Willow Street is grass behind the houses on Willow Street. So it's between the holiday park and the houses.
Okay.
Does that
Thank you, Mr.
clarify?
Andrews. Yeah, that's clarified. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Any further questions, councillors? No? Thank you very much for your presentation.
you.
Our next speaker is Mr. Joshua Dennis. He's speaking for 10.3 Crescent Head Holiday Park Revised Concept Plan. Thank you, Mr. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. It's nice to be up here and, on a really positive note. We welcome recommendations of 10.3.2.A that Area 9 remain within the holiday park boundary until 2027, with further considerations of this area being part of the broader master plan for the foreshore. The importance of this area just cannot be understated. If anyone drives down the foreshore and they drive up to the end where there's that little cul-de-sac, you'll see how narrow it is. And that narrowness really limits any design into the future. And then behind that narrowness, we have Area 9. So back in 2021, with the first, there was a previous holiday park master plan, and that was proposed to be cabins. And we could foresee that, hey, if this is cabins, this is going to be really hard for us to design this for the future. So we fought really quite hard there to have that squashed. So here we are today. And, the significance that area plays is what it'll mean. It'll mean greater access to that Crown foreshore. We'll be able to do a fantastic design that can really cater for all people. You've got nice width there. You can set back. There's buffers you can move the cars back. You can have a buffer from the caravan park. You can have, if need be, you can have back-to-back parking. The options are limitless. But without that, we're back to where we were in 2021. And 2021, when there were designs done for the foreshore with the same area which was proposed, which the Foreshore Advisory Committee had been given in their terms of reference. So that area had already been studied before. So that's why we had to bring to the attention to the community that, hey, this is just a rinse and repeat at what had happened before. So if we do not include that area, Area 9, what it will mean, and we know this because the designs have been done in the past, they were done in 2021, it will mean a reduction in 20% of the car parks. It's been done. The plans are available to anyone, the council, and the loss of all foreshore car parks. It's been done before. Anyone can go and look at those plans. So, and the thing for us is, as you are the Crown managers for the foreshore, you are bound by the objectives and the principles of the Crown land, which states there must be fair access to the foreshore and to encourage public use and enjoyment. So all we've ever asked for is just a fair go here. We wanted to have a holistic design which included the foreshore, the public space and the caravan park all in one. That's all we've ever fought for, and we welcome this, and we welcome the recommendations in 10.4.4a, the inclusion of Area 9 in the terms of reference for the Foreshore Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. Councillors, anyone have a question for Mr. Dennis? No, obviously, you've been very clear. Oh, wait, Councillor Patterson has one. Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thanks, Josh, for your presentation. I go with you back to that previous setup number of years ago where there was proposed to be cabins there. In the working group or in the discussions that you've had about this section, Area 9, do you understand how much of income that is for council, where council now has had a presentation tonight looking at cutting costs, about how council can also look at possibly increasing income to lessen the burden on the ratepayer? So do you understand where that goes for this section 9?
I do understand. The council did a great presentation at the community hall there a couple of weeks ago. I understand the foreshore, we make $3.4 million a year off all the holiday parks. I understand that in the last 5 years, none of that money's been spent on the foreshore, on any foreshore. I understand any money that's made on the Crown needs to be spent on the Crown. So we can't fix the pothole in Bellbrook with money from cabins on the foreshore. So that's the thing that people don't always understand. So understand there's $7.4 million in the bank for the foreshore. I would expect that if you were to go take that $7.4 million today and do a Rolls Royce done up, or do the foreshore up, that might cost you $3 million. So this reinvestment into the foreshore, it doesn't quite make sense to me. And so, yeah, I do have a pretty good understanding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dennis. No further question. Oh, wait, we do have a question from Councillor Bain online. Thank you, Councillor Bain.
Thanks for your presentation, Mr. Dennis. I'm interested so your focus is on both the surf reserve and the foreshore parking, and I'm just asking this for clarity. So you're feeling that the holiday park concept plan is going to support the appropriate development of the foreshore parking and therefore protect the surf reserve? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll just touch on the Crescent Head Surf Reserve, and there's been a bit of to and fro. People have sort of accused me of scaremongering. This is going to affect the Surf Reserve, when actually the Surf Reserve, I didn't even realise it only goes to the high tide watermark. But all right, you tell that to the people that go down there of a weekend who are sitting there enjoying it. That's what I'm talking about. I might have put the label Crescent Head Surf Reserve because maybe that's a label that's been given, but for us, it's the whole area and the way people use the space. And yes, Councillor Bain, sorry. Yes, it would support any future design, and I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. There's no follow-up question. Oh, Councillor Wyatt.
I do have a question. Yeah, thanks for that. Last year, this area your group came and talked about Area 9, so it's good to see that it's on the table. So the Save the Car Park group, the Save the Surf Reserve group, your group, was Area 9 your primary concern, or do you have other concerns about the car park and the space?
Well, to be honest, it sort of felt to us that the whole thing was probably lost. It wasn't until this came up in the council and when there was the redoing of the master plan, where we had to act very quickly. We had a 3-week window to try and get to this point where we are today, which is quite amazing that it looks like we can actually do the right thing and save get a great design, a holistic design. But if we have this area, it's definitely going to help. Yeah.
Thank you. No other further questions. I thank you for your presentation, Mr.
Thank you.
Dennis.
Appreciate it.
Our final speaker is Mr. Graham Allen. He's speaking against proposed dual occupancy and strata subdivisions, and I won't read out all of them. I'll just say the addresses: 20 Rosedale Avenue, Southwest Rocks; 24 Rosedale Avenue; 26 Rosedale Avenue; 29 Rosedale Avenue; 27 Rosedale Avenue, and 25 Rosedale Avenue. I hope I haven't missed any. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Your time's on. We have to press a button till a red light comes on. There's a bit of a trick to it. You got it. Well done.
Good evening, councillors and members of the public. My name is Graham Allen. I live in Rosedale Avenue in Southwest Rocks, which I have for 16 years. One of the main reasons we purchased land in Seascape Grove is due to the high standards of covenants and was reinforced by the developer Barry Walls. Rosedale Avenue is currently facing 7 dual occupancies for DA applications for the 11 blocks that are available, with potential for 4 more on the blocks that are still available, meaning it would be a full street of dual occupancy in a street that had high covenants, which no longer stand because the DA has been changed. Regardless, with Rosedale Avenue only being 6.2 metres from curb to curb, making it one of the narrowest residential streets in Southwest Rocks, this will create a catastrophic issue for the whole of Rosedale and Seascape Grove. The dwellings that have been submitted only have 1 single garage and 4 bedrooms each side, meaning 2 garages, 8 bedrooms on 1 block. With each dwelling have 4 bedrooms and potential of many cars, potentially 8 per block, with trailers, that could have boats, caravans, any other vehicles. Most of these garages are too small to park in because they have the laundries inside the garage, which the floor plans have all been sent. With so many potential cars on the street, this creates a dangerous environment for residents and road users, makes bin collection impossible, emergency services very hard to come through, and traffic flow and public use will be quite dangerous. All of these dwellings are not compliant, either with density, landscaped areas, block frontages, and driveway crossovers, as sent to you on an email yesterday prior to this meeting. These dwellings are not compliant with the 2.1 dual occupancy side-by-side from New South Wales Planning and Kempsey Shire Council Chapter 1 Residential Development Document. Unfortunately, this is happening in other places, in other estates with high covenants and regulations in Southwest Rocks and New South Wales. From first hand, I am aware that Kempsey Shire Council do not do all the approvals, nor do they do all the site visits for the approvals. This creates a council to be out of touch with the community requirements that Southwest Rocks does not have the capacity or need of large-scale dual occupancies. They are all rentals, as you will see on realestate.com, and there are currently 27 rentals in Southwest Rocks, and 6 of them are dual lock. The dual locks cannot be filled and have only been constructed for a very short period. Southwest Rocks Southwest Rocks does not cannot sustain the high density living with our medical services, schools, parking, shops, and lack of jobs. Our sewerage plant is already at a high vulnerability and has been for years. Our NBN and power services are not much better. Why, Kempsey Shire Council, are you allowing dual occupancies on large scales to be approved? Why are you allowing big companies and investors in our towns to buy land in bulk? There is no need for bulk dual occupancies with no demand on a large scale. I am a local builder from South West Rocks. I have been for years. And my motto has always been, I believe in quality, not quantity. And I really appreciate you all listening to me today, and I hope that resonates in your meeting tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Councillor Riddington?
Scott was before me.
I didn't see your light. I'm sorry, Councillor Butterfield. Councillor Butterfield, then Councillor Riddington, and then Councillor Patterson. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Graham, for your presentation. Mr. Allen, sorry. I've misplaced my glasses, so I can't read it, and even make the screen bigger. How many blocks or dual occupancies are there? Was it 7?
So we've got 7, but there is definitely 2 more that we know of, which would make 9.
Yeah.
And there's only 2 blocks that haven't been sold, so that could be all 11.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't understand where you're coming from. My son actually lives up in Brisbane, up around Park Ridge, and what you're talking about to me doesn't make any sense.
Councillor.
Yeah, I'll
just get the question if you could, please, Councillor.
All right, I'll miss all that, but I do understand where you're coming from. Would you be happy if that was reduced to say maybe 1 or 2, or none at all?
To be honest, I wouldn't be happy with any because it's not the covenants we signed into. We came into Rosedale because it had covenants, high quality homes, and our street's one of the best of South West Rocks, and people will back that. None would be preferred, but there is opportunity for a couple. You know, the roads could sustain a couple. The roads can't sustain any more than a couple. No. They just won't. It's too narrow.
Yeah, there's more I'd like to say, but I can't. I'm going to ask questions. Sorry. All right, thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Councillor Riddington, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll note before you start. Councillor Bain, you'll be after Councillor Patterson. Councillor Riddington, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen. I know this road very well. I've driven on it many times. In your opinion, when you were talking about the traffic, is there a road in and out? Or is there one road, or is there many roads in and out of your area?
That is a very great question. Thank you. It has been subdivided. So we originally were a dead-end road, and as of 12 months ago, it has opened up, and you can now drive around onto Bell O'Connor, but it only goes to Bell O'Connor. Potentially, there'll be more links up to this road coming from 2 other roads from the subdivision. So it will be a high-traffic area. There are 2 roads that are already built, and there are dead ends, and there's planning for them to come around. So there'll be 4 roads technically potentially coming into Rosedale. Okay,
thank you. So in the meantime, if there was an emergency, in your opinion, if all these dual locks were built, how would anyone get out?
I don't think a resident could get through, let alone emergency. The roads are too narrow. If you park 2 cars either side by side or have a trailer, you are battling to get through now.
Thank you. And just one more, if I may, please.
Yes.
So when you purchased your block in Rosedale Avenue in the Barry Wall subdivision, did that restrictive covenant end at your boundary? When you said that the DA had changed, did they actually on-sell those blocks as single dwelling, or were they just blocks?
So what happened, that land was subdivided just over 16 years ago. We had strict covenants. There was literally a book of covenants, which you had to follow, and Barry had to sign off on it. Barry sold the land probably 4 years ago to a developer. He changed the DA as condition of sale. So basically nothing stood, to the point where it didn't matter anymore. So that was probably the disappointing part. We've got a street with high-end covenants to nothing, to doesn't matter. And I don't understand how you can do that in one street. I just don't understand how one street you can cut in half and go, you can have that, and then it doesn't matter. You know, it'd be like having councillors that care and councillors that don't care in the same room.
Yep.
Like it'd be exactly the same thing. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. I have some more questions, but I can tell you that all these councillors care and do their very best, even if we come out with different conclusions. Councillor Patterson, please.
If you don't mind, thanks, Mr. Allen, for your presentation tonight. I have around 9 questions.
Well, we're looking for succinct, so let's get to them, Ms. Councillor Patterson.
Plenty, very succinct. Mr. Allen, you mentioned about compliance. What facts do you have to prove that the dwellings are not compliant to the New South Wales planning?
We have a dual occupancy side-by-side letter here, which we also sent in the email. When you go through that, it talks about frontages, which is probably the biggest one, saying you need a 20-metre frontage for any dual occupancy that's not on a corner block. Most of these are only 16 for the approvals, so none of them comply with the frontage, only being 16 metres as they are. So that's, you're 4 metres out. It's a pretty significant amount. But yet in all the DAs that they've put in, they know they're not compliant. They've written they're not compliant, and we've also highlighted that to tell you that in the DAs that they've put in, they know they're not compliant, yet they're still putting them in.
Compliance. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Compliance. Well, what do you believe the proposed dual occupancy in Rosedale Avenue why don't comply with Kempsey Shire Council C1 residential planning development documents? So, why doesn't that?
So we did mention in the speech that it didn't comply. Basically, we got this off council's website, which we also sent in the email on Sunday, stating that if you read through it, this is probably the best clause. I won't read them all to you, but this one probably sinks deepest with myself. Dual occupancy shall be restricted to corner allotments or allotments with a minimum primary street frontage of 20 metres.
Wow.
There is also another nice one that says should be compatible with the streetscape and have no significant adversity impact on the amenities and the locality. And there's no streetscape that's matching there, except they'll all be the same.
True.
That's the only one.
Councillor Patterson, number 3.
I've still got a few more. Why do you suggest that poor planning is a problem in Rosedale Avenue?
I think that's a good question, Anthony. Just based on, as I've already mentioned, probably the traffic's probably the biggest one, the safety of the street and the public. I think there's a lot of issues with the planning for that many in one spot. I don't see anywhere in South West Rocks where they're putting so many close together. There are other spots, there are other estates where they are putting close together, but not that many. There's never been that many in precedent on a very narrow street.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
I got another one for you. Why are the Rosedale Avenue residents so passionate about this development in particular?
That's a very good question, Anthony, which I'm lucky to have some of my neighbours with me today, and we've had multiple meetings over this, is why I'm here today. I got dobbed in to come and speak. That's why I'm up the front. But we are so passionate because we are a tight-knit community. We do take care of our street and take pride in it. We always have. Hence, we've been lucky enough to win Christmas lights 2 years in a row, best Christmas lights in the Macleay area. Just shows the passion of our street and how tight network we are as a community and as neighbours. And to see this happening, we're going to end up with a street that's no longer the same. It's going to destroy it. It's just not the same street anymore. It's going to be high density living areas where a street can't handle it. So that's probably our passion, Anthony. Thank you.
True. So, Graham, in your speech today, you mentioned that this is happening in other estates in South West Rocks. Can you please elaborate on that?
Yes, that's a very good question, Anthony, too, because I have been seeing this happen a lot. I am building for some clients at the moment in the Seabreeze estate, and that was very much like Rosedale and Seascape. So Seabreeze, Seascape, they've got that very same feel. It also had a novel this big on covenants, and I mean high covenants, and one of them was no dual lock. And there's 2 approved of dual lock on blocks that don't comply. Once again, do not comply, and these have been approved. And I think it's something where you need to look at, and I'd really like you to discuss this tomorrow. I don't have the lot numbers, but I can get them to you if you ask me for them. I'm building a beautiful home, big 2-story home. It's absolutely glamorous, and it's going to have a dual lock right next to it. and these people did not buy this land for that to happen. And to witness that happen to them and see they're distraught, it actually makes me upset. Because if it was me and it was my house and that happened to me, and it was the house of my dreams and my last ever house, and I put all this money and time and effort into my dream home and had that happen to me, when a piece of paper this thick said it shouldn't, I'd be pretty disappointed.
Thank you, Councillor
I'm
Patterson.
writing down a couple more questions. I just see this is a very important topic, Mr. Mayor, so that's why I'm asking so many. You mentioned, Mr. Allen, the Kempsey Shire Council do not do all the site visits and approvals for DAs. Why do you believe this is happening?
I believe this is happening, one, because the resources, Kempsey Shire Council can't be everywhere at once. But I believe a lot of it's happening from outside sources or from the developers that are putting it in, because they've obviously got private certifiers, etc. But I did witness it firsthand, which I said in my speech. I saw a government car pull up just down the street when Rosedale just opened, and I went and approached myself, introduced myself and had a chat, and I found out they were the ones doing all the development applications and looking at all the approvals for what was going to be submitted, only for a few blocks, not all of them. And I found out they were from Newcastle. All 4 people were from Newcastle, and very young, and no touch with the Macleay. I asked them questions about the Macleay and things like that. I had no idea. So for me, that was a little bit, for something so major and such a big development, and for Kempsey actually not physically coming out and doing it was a little bit of a kick. Yeah, I was pretty disappointed with that.
Mr. Allen, another question. Are you against dual occupancy dwellings?
I definitely am not against dual occupancy. I think they have a place, and when they're done correctly, they can be quite nice. When they're spread out and you disguise them, I guess, between other buildings and they're not taking up too much area, they're great. They have a purpose. They help with cost of living crisis and housing problems, definitely. But on a large scale, and South West Rocks, as I said, don't really need it because they're not filling them up. They're rentals, they're not filling them up. So to me, I don't think they need them in large scale. It's just they don't need them in large scale. Yes, a couple, fine, but not large scale. I'm not against it.
Mr. Allen, you also mentioned about the sewer capabilities. Do you think that the DA on that whole area, because looking at the planning of that, there's quite a number of allotments there. Do you think those DAs being assessed on the basis of single occupancy, like single dwellings on each allotment, not say the possibility of 16 people living on the one block?
I think you're correct in what you're saying, that there's a big possibility that maybe they're overlooking the capacity of how many people can live there, same with cars and traffic. But where we go back to infrastructure too, like medical and the rest of it, it goes right down the line. It's not just sewer. Sewer's been a problem for a long time, which you mentioned, but it goes right down the line. It's the capacity. But once again, if you're not filling them up, it's not a problem, is it? They're not going to be living in them.
That's true.
So it's...
They will, yeah. My last question, and I believe this is a very important one to all us councillors here, is Mr. Allen, why should we have restrictions and rules if we don't follow them in the building code, in the development of our shire?
That is a great one, and I sort of refer it to as if you were driving a car down the street and there was no police around, because that's where I feel it's been missed. It feels like it doesn't matter what the rules are, as long as these developers can pay. And surely you guys get 2 sets of rates from all this, as well. So there's benefits for you as well. I'm not going to deny that. But without being policed and properly assessed, but I will appreciate you. I will end on this with this part of this question. Thank you for not rushing to put the development applications in and approving them. Thank you for taking your time, and that's to Michael Jackson as well, to actually not rushing out to approve these and just let them go. Because the other ones did around from us, and it happened at Seabreeze Estate. They didn't get a chance, but at least you've given us a chance, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you listening, and I hope it resonates tomorrow when you all talk together and go over it. Because it does mean a lot to hear it out, and this has been dwelling for all of us for a long time. So thank you.
Mr. Allen, we have another question for you. Yes. Thank you for Councillor Patterson for his 9 questions, and there's no limit, Councillor Patterson, as you know. Councillor Bain is online and has a question, then we'll come to Councillor White.
Hello, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. So my understanding is when you bought into Rosedale, have you willingly engaged with this covenant on the understanding, these strict covenants, that this would maintain a certain level in your area? Yeah, that's what the covenant was about. So your good faith, you invested with that. So who changed this? How can you tell me the mechanics of how this changed so that these new developments don't have to apply the same conditions that you had to apply? How did that happen?
So the new developer that purchased the land, they've traded hands. So the original owner sold it, the new developer has bought it, and then he's gone and changed the rules with the DA, with council. He's gone, well, I no longer want these covenants and these DA regulations to hold me back from the land. I want them all taken off, and I want to put my own ones on, and that will help with the sale of the land. So that's probably the best answer I can give you. How and what happened behind scenes or why that happened, I don't know. It's definitely a money grab from the developer, no doubt. And the land was all sold within 2 weeks down around from our place, which means it was all bought by the same person. Yeah. So they sold all the land in one go.
Did Kempsey Shire Council approve that change? Like the change to the covenants? Was it? If
you don't know, you can say I don't know.
I don't know, but I would say yes. They would have had to have approved it.
I'll follow that one up. Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bain.
I think we need to also. I have concerns of what you were saying about the infrastructure. Not only infrastructure like sewer, but infrastructure like. Have you got access to green spaces and areas where? Like the kids can play safely, or because these dual occupancies will take up the majority of the block, I'm assuming. So is there like a park or something within easy walking distance for families?
There's no area that's been designated for that. And my other concern is with the dual locks that with a limited parking, they're all going to be parking over the footpath. So you physically won't even be able to walk down the footpath. No prams, no dogs, nothing. Like there's nowhere for them to go. So it's going to be there's nowhere for kids to play, but I don't think the street will be safe either.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bain.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. And Councillor White has a question as well.
Thank you. You're doing very well. And I was just looking at my screen to confirm my question. I wasn't ignoring you. So my question is very similar to what Councillor Bain was talking about. And you mentioned in your speech, and I've had an email from the community, I'm not sure if Karen is here.
Yeah, it's my wife, yep.
Is it? Okay, yep. Right. The wall development. So was this whole area, the wall development?
Yeah, so that would be Seascape Grove. Seascape Grove you're referring to?
I thought you said something like when you're referring to the development or the developer on Rosedale Avenue, I thought you called that person
Barry Walls. Barry Walls was the original owner.
The whole lot?
Yeah, he owned like acres and acres of land, and then he subdivided a little bit, put a plan in to do the rest, never did it. And that's where the other developers picked off where he's left.
That's what I'm looking at. So so he sold it to another developer, and then they changed the DA when that land was sold. Do you know when was the land sold to the second buyer?
I would say 3 to 4 years ago. But we had nobody told us the DA was going to change. We had no until we saw these approvals coming through on all these DAs. We had no idea.
Yeah, so give or take about 2019.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah.
And the wall person developed. Oh, you said you've been there for 16 years.
Yeah. So he developed a whole lot. It was just virtually, and that was one of the first estates in there. So it came off Bell O'Connor, and it was paddocks. It was before the links, before Athena. We were living in a paddock. Like we were the first people living there. It was like living in rural. It was fantastic.
I remember driving out there too.
Yeah, it was a great spot.
So, I just lost my train of thought. Bummer. Sorry, lost my train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
What did I ask? Okay. So did the covenant Mr. Walls, did his covenant include the entire lot? And you're saying that the covenant was there, and when he sold it to a new developer and changed it, the covenant was gotten rid of?
Correct.
So that's a question I'd ask tomorrow.
And I don't know if Barry knew that was going to happen. So Barry unfortunately passed away less than 12 months ago, just before Christmas. So it was a bit unfortunate because these are questions we could have had and, answers we could have obtained. So I knowing Barry and how strict he was, if he knew this was going to happen, he would be here with us today.
Yeah, so
He wouldn't have a bar of it because he was so passionate about that estate. He wouldn't even let us have the wrong fence or the wrong paint colour. He was adamant we had to have tin roofs. We had to give him the plan and he had to approve it. And if we wanted to do something different in the block, we'd have to ask him first. We'd be like, oh, Barry, we just want to change the fence colour. And nah, you know what you signed into. This is what you've signed into. And, that's what we did sign into. We knew that, So to see what's happened is devastating. And it would be to him. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much. No.
Thank you. Councillor Bain, you may have missed that because someone's microphone wasn't on, but he just, Councillor White, just thanked Mr. Allen. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Allen, very much for your presentation. Oh, wait, Councillor Butterfield has a question. I missed it. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Butterfield.
Just for my own clarity, because I don't sort of understand the whole how it all sort of works. So basically, the owner or the developer of an estate, they basically set the guidelines for the covenants. Is that right, or is it within reason, I suppose, with the council regulations, I suppose?
As far as I know, they do. I don't think it's a council requirement or anything that really council have to do with that. I think it's more as a personal preference from the developer to know they've got quality and probably ask for a higher price of their land because they're going to have quality builds around them. So you always find when these covenants are in, they're normally in a more prestige area, and that's what's expected to be built around you. So that's why Seabreeze is a bit of a kick too, because I actually do have a block of land in there. I've built a home to sell, and it's beautiful. The houses that are getting built around there are lovely, like they are stunning. And then once we saw these builder signs go up and saw the DAs, we're like, they've totally destroyed this estate too, where it shouldn't be. It's in the covenants. So to see the covenants not being followed or policed, I don't know whose fault that is. I don't know if that's a developer. Whether the developer's meant to oversee it because he's the one selling the land, but it is a good question to find out because I don't know who's meant to police it.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions asked tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson has another question. Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. It's me again. Mr. Allen, I'm going to ask you a question of how do you think this will happen? It's Wednesday night, you got your bins out the front. The cars, the families that are living in those dual occupancies, they've got mum and dad, they've got a car, the kids have just got their license, so each house has got 3 cars, so that's 6 cars. Then they've got visitors over because it's her 18th birthday party. And then that thing that just went past 5 minutes ago with the lights flashing was needed down the end of the street and it's bin night.
Councillor Patterson, could you get to the question, please?
My question is, how will that work?
I think you've answered the question.
There you go.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson, for your probing question. Mr. Allen, thank you very much for your presentation this evening and to the other presenters. I'm going to ask, you can sit down now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And to conclude, I'll ask the General Manager, he's got some extra information for us on covenants.
Yeah, through Mr. Mayor, I'll actually get Mr. Jackson to outline. We do have information on the history of the covenants. There's some general comments about covenants in general, but there's also some specific information about the covenants in that area. So I'll get Mr. Jackson to outline that.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so the covenants on this area were originally put in place by the developer on the sections of land that he did subdivide. However, they were not applied to the remnant lot, which was the remainder that was set for future development. So the work that was done 16 years ago did include those covenants. However, none of those covenants were applicable to the lot which he then on-sold later on. So the new developer has not removed covenants. They've simply not applied a similar set of covenants, and there were no covenants on the lot. There were covenants for different reasons, but none of the covenants that are being referred to regarding dual occupancies, etc., are applied to the lot that was developed later, the most recent lot. On the topic of covenants come in a couple of forms. There are these developer covenants, and then there are also covenants such as through utilities and through council requirements. Developer covenants really do cease having any real legal effect at the point that the developer is no longer involved in that subdivision. So, council would not be in a position to impose a developer covenant onto a lot. If somebody came 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later to do something, we would not be looking at the developer covenant, as they really wouldn't have a great deal of impact. Covenants as to specific planning restrictions being applied to the lot by council or by other state agencies would be looked at, but a developer covenant as to materiality and other restrictions to do with the area and the prestige of the area would not be applied through a planning process.
Thank you, Councillor, Director Jackson. I think we'll conclude the meeting right now, but again, if that's the case, as we've just been explained, you can change the colour of your fence, Mr. Allen. Thank you very much. So that concludes our public forum for today. I thank all the people in the public forum for attending, and for each of the presenters, thank you for expressing your viewpoint. All councillors have listened carefully and asked questions and taken on board what you've said, and that informs what decisions they will make tomorrow. Thank you all, and that's the conclusion of our meeting.